Hello everyone, Alistair Gold here. Yes, you guessed it. A win was followed by a loss. The win-loss, 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 win-loss 2022 continues. Tottenham weren't that bad. They weren't. It would be unfair to say that they had a really bad day at the office. There were things that went wrong and players that didn't really turn up. But ultimately, this incredibly consistent inconsistency, if you know what I mean, continues. Apologies if I look knackered, by the way. It was a late night in Manchester, trying to write everything up after that game, and then a long train journey back today. For some reason, I think it was some kind of engineering works. Anyone that came back today on the trains to Euston would have known that what should have been a 2-hour journey became a 3.5-hour one, which was great fun. But I digress. The football. Let's talk about the football. It's just a bad weekend for Spurs all round in terms of the results that have come today. Obviously, everyone around them pretty much has won. It's just one of those weekends that, they'll look back on and just think, I wish I'd really done that little thing better. If I'd done that right, if I hadn't made that decision, where would we be in the table right now? And things have got a lot trickier. It's not over by any means whatsoever. Still, is it 11 games to go? But I suppose I have to win a lot of those 11 games, which right now, you'd bet on them to win half of them, because that's currently what they're doing right now. What was strange was when I turned up to Old Trafford yesterday, I was saying this to a few people, you kind of felt like United probably are going to play into Spurs' hands slightly, because they've just got beaten 4-1 in a derby, against Man City. In front of an expectant Old Trafford crowd, Spurs were coming to town. They I felt, had to show what they were going to do. They had to show some attacking intent, some verve, take the initiative, take the game to Tottenham, thrill the crowd. That's what should have happened. What actually happened was, they didn't at all. They almost played pretty much like they were the visiting team. They played on the counter-attack. To be fair, that's every right they have tactically as well. It's denying Spurs that space behind that they love to attack. Rangnick would have looked at what Spurs had done to the likes of City, Leeds, Everton, and kind of how they profited from that space when the other team is pushing them. That's, we know it. We know it like the back of our hand. We know that that's when Tottenham play at their best, when they've got space to run into. When you give them a more of an organised, compact midfield and defence to break down, they struggle. They kind of prod away at it, but they lack that potency when they get into the final third. And United played the game exactly like that. What I would say, it did enormously hinge their plan on the quality of Cristiano Ronaldo, who he was just excellent in terms of his hold-up play, but also obviously the way he dealt with the 3 goals. He bullied Spurs. That's probably the best way to put it. He was so strong. They just didn't deal with him well at all. And there were some moments which we'll get to where they allowed him to play to his strengths. We are going to get to it, so I'm not going to spoil the excitement. You know exactly what's coming, so I'm not spoiling anything. It was a weird game. And for a 37-year-old to run the game, I think is a compliment to him. It shows the class. When I say run the game, I mean, decide the game, define the game, whatever way you want to put it. He was top class on the day, and some people saying Spurs made him look good. Maybe that leads into what I was just saying. They did play to his strengths with some of their defending, but I think you also have to give him compliments as well. And Conte certainly did afterwards. He was giving him a lot of praise and saying, unfortunately, I know him well, which sounds harsher than he probably meant it, but I think I know what he means, that he's come up against him a fair few times and it hasn't gone well for him. Just to put it into perspective as well, because, Ronaldo loves scoring against Tottenham. They were his, that hat-trick made it 807 goals against all his opponents in a remarkable career. You might have thought I meant 807 goals against Spurs when I started that, but he is class. He is class. He is. You don't become one of the best players in the world for nothing, even at 37 to still have it. But yeah. Tottenham played well for long spells. They did. Like I said at the top of this, to kind of make out that Spurs were dreadful and they went there and were awful would be harsh and untrue, I think. I agree with some people that, a lot of teams have gone to Old Trafford and created chances, so that's not a new thing. But no, I thought, again, it's another thing we'll come to, but I think you could see what Conte's doing in some of the stuff, mainly attacking. But it just wasn't the quality at the end of it at all. And Conte would have expected United to dominate a game in their own, backyard as well. So Spurs end up with 57% of the possession. I think both teams had 10 shots on goal. The difference was that United had 6 on target. Spurs only had 3. That kind of sums that up, really. Just that quality in the final stages. It was a weird day. It was a really weird day. The Old Trafford crowd were kind of up and down as well. I didn't know quite how to go. It was a day of superstars. Tom Brady was there. He wasn't actually too far from the press area. For those who don't like NFL, that will mean nothing. For those who like NFL, obviously he's one of the if not the legend of American football. And also has struck up a friendship with Harry Kane, and Harry Kane idolises him. But on the day, the two superstars really were Brady and Ronaldo. And Kane, he scored a penalty, of course, but didn't put himself within their company on the day at all. And that will have annoyed him, no doubt. But, you've got to be better. You do. The one thing I would say to anyone that's really in the doom and gloom and worried about stuff, Conte was far less deflated than he has been in other defeats. This one, I got the sense, he said it essentially. It wasn't, he felt it was quite a good performance. He felt there were mistakes made, of course, and in his words, he always says, we can improve a lot. And that's true. But I think Spurs went to another tough away game. And like I say, they played well for long periods. And had they just shown some better moments, especially in the first half, I think they would have come away with something. And obviously, Ronaldo makes a difference. You take Ronaldo out of that kind of team, finishing everything off, put in someone else, even maybe someone like Cavani. I don't think Spurs maybe come away with all 3 points potentially. But yeah, Ronaldo was just Chelsea. After the Chelsea games, Conte said there's an important gap between the teams. There was not an important gap between Spurs and United right now. It was just a world-class player in Cristiano Ronaldo. He was the gap, as it were, just his finishing ability. While Spurs' big names, we're going to talk about them, really didn't step up to the plate for me whatsoever. Not for me, personally. You know what I mean? Yeah, Conte was all right. I was just trying to remember exactly his demeanour. It was more the patient Conte, talking about needing time, talking about good things that he'd seen and what he wanted to work on and things like that. And but it was put to him, and he admits it. This consistent inconsistency, as it were. Yes, I know that's a paradox, but you can't continue just win loss. It doesn't get you anywhere. You will end up nowhere. You can't advance in cup competitions with that kind of instability. And you're not going to get anywhere in the league with it either, especially when people around you are putting together runs of victories. Spurs need to end it. They really do. It feels like they're getting closer. It feels like he's starting to fix some of the problems. I agree in one respect. Let's make no mistake, the Nuno days of barely having chances in games and shots on target or even shots at goal sometimes, they're long gone. Spurs are scoring a fair few goals. They are, even in a day yesterday where I felt some of the attacking players weren't on their game, they still scored 2 goals. So yeah, there's definitely something happening. It's just whether it happens in time for this season. That's going to be the problem now. Right, I'm going to do a bit of story time with Alistair because Conte gave quite a long answer to. It was when he was asked whether he could fix the inconsistency, and again, I just feel for the sake of 2 minutes, if it's that of me saying this answer, it probably explains far more than I could have just paraphrasing and talking about it. So what he said when he was asked this was, I'm the first to say that if you want to be competitive, if you want to improve your level, you have to try to work a lot. At this moment, the team needs to work a lot on many aspects. At the same time, we have to be stable. To be stable and to keep good results in every moment. Instead, we're going up and down, up and down. Don't forget, in the last 5 games, we scored 3 goals at Manchester City away, 4 goals away at Leeds, 5 goals against Everton, 2 goals here against United away. It means that the team is producing, is improving and creating chances and scoring a lot of goals. But at the same time, we have to try to improve in experience and managing the game. Because during the game, there are many parts of the game. There are moments where you feel you have to push and to go strong, to win duels. There are moments that you have to keep possession. You have to be more calm. I think in this aspect we can improve a lot. It depends on the experience. We have many players, young players, and many players that are in this league for not a long time. I know very well that I have to change this situation, working a lot. This situation, it hasn't come from now, but it's come from a long period. To see up and down for this team, we have to continue to work and to give continuity to make more experience to manage the game because of the example. We have equalised, but after 1 minute we conceded a second goal. We've made it 2-2, but then we've conceded a goal from a set piece. In the last period, we've been conceding a lot of goals from set pieces, but we're working on this. You have to know that this is a process because this team is a team that needs time. It needs time to grow and improve, but I think you can see their improvement, a big improvement on the pitch. You can see what they're doing on the pitch, but in this process you need time and patience and then try to do this, but I want to push my players because our ambition has to be to stay very close to the top 4. I want to take this responsibility because we're working a lot and I'm seeing a lot of improvement. We need a target to give us emotion, to give us the possibility to push ourselves. We have to be disappointed because this game we deserve much more, not only to draw. So apologies for that long bit, but I do feel that in his words he says it better. And it's quite interesting when he talks about the players not being calm after both the first and second goal, mainly after the second Spurs goal, you saw him doing this. He was doing this a lot, kind of like think, and like calm. And then, what was it? United's third, it come about 8-9 minutes later. I think it was 9 minutes later. So you can maybe argue they were slightly calm in the aftermath, but then they kind of switched off again. But yeah, the time between Harry Kane's penalty and Ronaldo hitting in the second that's where we call it schoolboy stuff. That's just daft. If you're going to let someone within a couple of minutes just break up the other pitch and score again, you've just undone all the good work you've kind of put in there. But even when I say they looked impotent up front, I was trying to think about it. And, you've got Eric Dyer, didn't he? Had the shot cleared or the header cleared off the line. Ben Davies put the ball in the net, but he was adjudged offside. Bentancur and Doherty both had chances that were blocked inside the box. Højbjerg had an effort that was low down. That was pretty easy for De Gea. And then you had, obviously, the penalty as well, that incident. I think Kulusevski maybe going to the box for another one in the first half. Obviously, second half, there were further chances. Sonny had a big one. So, yeah, they created. They kind of did that thing, but ultimately, the big players on this day just didn't really make their mark. And we've spoken about Harry Kane, but I said this in the last video, but unfortunately, it's continuing to be true. The inconsistency of Tottenham is very much mirroring the inconsistency of Kane. He did some good stuff in the game and he held up the ball well on a few occasions. However, he can't be unplayable quiet. And that's kind of how he is, and that is very much mirroring Tottenham. And of course, I think I said this before, other players then have to step up. It shouldn't be a burden on his shoulders every week to drag Spurs out of things. But he needs to find that little bit more consistency to his performances as well. His penalty was very calm, clinical, straight into the bottom left corner. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. I think it's now tied in with Sonny on 11 Premier League goals for the season, 21 in all competitions. But he was kind of crowded out. United kept putting about 3 or 4 players around him, knowing that he was going to try and come deep and do stuff with the ball. But that should have allowed space for other people to profit from. I was trying to think who profited from it really. It's probably only Kulusevski, really. He had another one where I wouldn't want to criticise him too much because I thought he showed some really good moments. He looked like, I think he was Spurs' main attacking threat. And quite interestingly, because sometimes it's nice to hear the views of other people that are just maybe seeing him for the first time. They've got that complete objectivity, not tainted by prior viewings. And when he was taken off, it was Lucas came on. Honestly, all the Man U journalists in the press box were all like, "What? Why are they taking off?" And there was one guy that said really loudly, "It's like I've written it down. Oh yeah, Spurs just took off their most dangerous player," and it's probably true. I think Kulusevski's slightly tired as the game wore on. The second half had a bit of a less of an impact like maybe from the midway point. But he'd done some good things. He'd obviously carved out that big Sonny chance. It ran into the box, cut it back for Sonny, who was unmarked and just unfortunately just put it off target, wide of the right post. That was a biggie. I think we watched it back. I think he would have been onside as well. There were some questions about that, but I think he was. And then of course it was his low cross, wasn't it, that hit Tellers' hand. No real complaints about that one, I wouldn't imagine, from any United players, and Kane put the ball away. So, Kulusevski, another good one. Not perfect, not on the level of his other performances, but I would say probably the best of the attacking bunch for Spurs. And again, something more he can build on as he continues to adapt. It was unfortunately quite noticeable that when he came off, Lucas Moura came on and pretty much contributed 0. There was maybe one run through the middle I can remember. I think maybe he won a free kick, I'm trying to remember. But it wasn't good for Conte to kind of see that the other option coming on was not doing the business. I'd actually say that Steven Bergwijn's probably looked slightly brighter than Lucas every time he's come on recently, so I don't know. I wonder whether the next time we see an attacking sub, whether Bergwijn comes on first or not. But Lucas did himself no favours whatsoever, really. And then there was Sonny. Sonny's in such a funny place at the moment. You can't fault his effort. He's working very hard. He is. He was doing a lot of defensive work yesterday that probably went unnoticed, or trying to get back anyway and cover. He's trying to kind of create the movement to cause problems for United, but he's just lacking confidence. I think that's all it is. I can't really put it down to anything else. I mean, yes, he could be tired. Of course he could. Could have been overplayed since he came back from his injury. It could just be that he's going through a sticky spell. But obviously, I think most players would like to be going through this sticky spell because I think he's created the second most goal combinations in the Premier League with his goals and assists, I think only to Salah. So, if that's a sticky spell, most players would like to be doing it. But, we all demand a higher kind of, what do you call it? Kind of higher level from Sonny. We know how brilliant he is. I know when I say these things, sometimes I have some South Korean fans get very annoyed and they feel like I'm picking out Sonny specifically, which I'm not. There are other players that didn't play well at all, and like I just said, Kane, I felt had a very quiet game despite his goal. Because this is my thing always. It's not, the goal shouldn't mask the rest of the performance, especially when it's a penalty. I get the odd South Korean who does get very upset when I say anything negative about Sonny, but I think it's important that you analyse players' performances. And Sonny will be the first to say, you ask Sonny right now, how are you playing? He will not say, well. No, he won't. Sonny is a perfectionist, and he will be trying to push himself as well. And I just think it is a confidence thing. I think he needs to score a bit of a worldie. I think he needs to, something like, remember his goal against Arsenal, the the one where they had a couple of thousand fans back at the Spurs stadium, when he just stepped up and just curled it from distance. I think he just needs a little moment of quality like that. Not an instinctive finish, not a, like his goal against, was it Leeds? Not that kind of stuff. One that is absolutely born of his real kind of thought process and quality. And I think that will kick him back on. Because I think Son is so important to Tottenham that, like I say, when Kane's not playing well, Spurs are often have been bailed out in the past by Sonny. Sonny's been the one to come to the rescue. And when they're both playing well, Spurs are just an absolutely different beast. And I just think the rest of this season is so crucial of having kind of an unlocked full Sonny, as it were. If Spurs can get that back, I think that's when you'll see lots of problems caused for other teams. I think Spurs will find that consistency. I think the consistency has to come from Kane and Son as well. And I don't like to criticise Sonny at all. But those same South Korean fans know how terrific he is and how good he can be. And so when he's not playing at that level, you shouldn't kind of point to everyone else and say, oh yeah, but they all aren't as well. That's true. They're not. And I will always say that. And I will write that in my stuff as well. However, we know that Sonny has got more quality than most. And he can play much better. And I'm sure he will. I asked Conte after the game actually about it because I wanted to ask him, with Sonny's confidence clearly being low, and I mean he kept slipping over. It was almost like he was wearing the wrong boots. It was a strange one. He had a few occasions where he was in really important situations and he just slipped. And I mean, there's an element of bad luck to that. There is also in football, people always say, have you got the right studs on? That's like something that comes from, when you're a kid. It may be that he did, it was just unfortunate. But it just kind of summed up the confidence at the moment that he hasn't got. And so I asked Conte afterwards, I said, is that something, that lost confidence, is that something that you can help him with? Or is it something that he kind of has to rediscover himself? And what he said, he kind of started off as if he was only going to say like a bit no answer. I'll only talk about the team. But he gave some little moments where you can kind of probably take stuff from what he said. He said, it's difficult to speak about single players because in the last game against Everton, he was devastating, Sonny. I think that when we win with the whole team, and we also lose with the whole team, for sure we're having players that for us are very important. There are a couple of players that are very, very important to us, and we need to always have good performances. But Sonny, and I think he played a good game to give everything tonight. Then there are games that everything goes well, and others where you can slip. Tonight he slipped twice. And it was a pity because it was in two important situations where you can go towards the goal. Sonny is a really important player for us, and he's a player that can make a difference for Tottenham. And I think that's the key. He's such an important player that when he's not on his top form, you really notice it with Spurs. And yeah, whether it's a case that he just needs a rest, whether they just allow him to somehow maybe it's a difficult one because you've got Brighton now and West Ham coming up really quickly. But whether in one of these weeks where there's a full week to come after the international break, whether he can just be given a few days off, just recharge. I don't know. He may be the kind of guy that doesn't want that. I don't know. But he needs a bit of help. He does. He can't do it all by himself. But yeah, that was a shame. I mean, I think the fact that was important for Son is that Conte's a big fan of his. He is. And maybe when you've got that belief in you, it helps you rediscover your level. And I've seen some people calling for Sonny to be dropped from the team. I've seen some strange person on Twitter saying he should be sold, which is that's just incredible. It's just like, I know Twitter's reacted, but that's stupid. I'm sorry, I don't like to say stuff like that about people's opinions because ultimately we all have opinions and we all have daft ones sometimes. But to think that Sonny should be sold is just utter madness. And I must stress, again, this is where the South Korean fans go Alistair Gold, they call me Gold. I don't get the Alistair, I'm called Gold. I know that's a South Korean thing where the names, sometimes they're their names are in a different order in the way they're pronounced. So perhaps they're calling me Gold because that's maybe that's a good thing. Maybe that's because they kind of have some little connection with what I'm saying. I don't know. Probably not after I criticise Son or don't give him a good mark in my player ratings. But yeah, I completely lost my train of thought now. But yeah, I'm not saying Sonny should be sold ever. Ever. Sonny should stay at Spurs forever. I don't know whether all the South Korean fans would like that, but I want him to because I think, what is he, 29? He really could, see out the rest of his career at Tottenham, and he's going to score many more goals. No, you just got to find the best of him. That's all it is. And how that comes about, that's down to the coaching team. But I don't actually think he should be dropped either. I don't. I think he's one of these players that you could argue, should any player feel that their spot is guaranteed? I don't think that's the case with Sonny. I think it's just having belief in him that he can turn this round. I wouldn't drop him. I wouldn't drop him for Lucas or Bergwijn. I think you let him play through this. And like I say, it just needs a moment of quality. I think it will re-spark him. It will reignite him even. So yeah, I didn't agree with that. I saw that on social media. I was just like, nope. I don't agree with that whatsoever. I do think that in games, he can be substituted. I don't think that you should allow him to stay on the entire time if he's not having a good game. I agree with that, but I would still start him in every game. I don't think, with no disrespect intended to Lucas or Steven Bergwijn, I just don't think they've got the quality that Son's got at this moment, as in themselves. Yeah. And I still like that blend. I like the blend of Kulusevski, Kane and Son, even if we didn't see it particularly dazzling against Man United. So not just the attack. There were issues across the team in terms of I felt the defence were worse. I think you look at it, the attack, even though they weren't great, there were still 2 goals scored. Defence, however, after back-to-back clean sheets in the Premier League, 3 goals conceded, and they were all had moments of real sloppiness. Eric Dyer wasn't as good. It wasn't a good game for him. I think he's come back and he's done some really good things. I think he's shown why Spurs need him. But this was not a good advert, I don't think, for Eric Dyer yesterday. It was yesterday. I'm so tired I am. I'm losing track of the days. He, on the first goal, bewilderingly really stood so far off of Ronaldo as if to say, go on in, hit it. It's like, no, it's Ronaldo. Of all the players, you don't let him just hit it. And he delivered, one of those kind of knuckleball shots that he does, which goes every which way and flew into the top corner. So yeah, Dyer wasn't great on that. Second goal, I obviously haven't seen the Sky footage because I was there, so I didn't have that voice in my head, as it were. I understand that they criticised Dyer for the second goal for suddenly rushing out and kind of catching Reguilon unaware. I agree with it to a point. I do think it looked like a sudden decision rather than a planned, executed move. But I still think Reguilon, who will come to, had his own share of issues in that as well. Romero didn't have a great game. It was probably one of the shakier Romero performances I've seen in a while. He didn't execute some of the things he normally executes really well. He looks a bit nervy. He's got this obviously front foot aggressive style of playing, which when it works, it's superb. But obviously he's only 23 and he needs to kind of learn exactly when to do it and when not to do it. Talking of things not to do, wasn't a huge fan of the roaring celebration in Harry Maguire's face after Maguire had scored the own goal. Look, again, he's only young at 23. And there seems to be, I don't know if it's an Argentinian thing or not, there seems to be I don't know, but certainly some of the Argentinian players at Spurs in recent years have liked to wind up opponents. It seems to be a little thing. Maybe it's more prevalent in their game, I don't know. But yeah, it kind of reminded me, in a slightly different sense, do you remember that Martin Keown, that image of him roaring in, was it Ruud van Nistelrooy's face, wasn't it? after I think it was a penalty miss. I don't like it. I don't like it. I think it only serves to come back to haunt you. And the fickle football finger of fate absolutely pointed itself squarely at Romero, because with that last goal, with the third Ronaldo goal, he was very easily pushed away by Ronaldo, almost as if he didn't exist. It was just like, ugh. And then Ronaldo, we know what he's like in the air. Matt Doherty tried to cover it, tried to cover him after. It was Romero's. Romero lost him at the start. Doherty tried to make up for it, but he didn't even get off the ground. And Ronaldo, it was a really good header. So yeah, and then you see that image of Romero, like just looking crestfallen at the edge of the pitch as all the United players are celebrating. Edge of the picture, and that's what happens. You're going to roar in someone's face after an own goal as well. Wasn't particularly classy. I know some people will like it. Some people will think it shows that that kind of spirit they want to see. I don't know. Especially an own goal. Especially with defenders. Defenders can score own goals all the time because they're throwing themselves in the way of crosses. It's far more easy for them to do that, of course. No, didn't like it. I must admit, I didn't like it at all. I thought Ben Davies was all right. All those who hate him will be going, oh my God, he's praising Ben Davies. But I thought it was okay. I thought he played quite a reasonable game. He didn't really have any major issues down that side of the pitch. I think, Sancho's run for the second goal was obviously, of course, down the Spurs right, United's left, so it was more Matt Doherty. The pace is not a Doherty thing, clearly. I didn't think Davies did too much wrong, and he got up the pitch on a few occasions to try and help out, put that ball in the net that unfortunately was offside. Yeah, I'd say he's one of the few players that probably doesn't deserve too much criticism, Ben Davies. I don't think he did too much wrong. The wing-backs, as I say, wing-backs are inconsistent. Matt Doherty, I've just described some of the things he did wrong defensively. Going forward, he had some quite good moments. There was one touch. He took down a Bentancur crossfield lofted pass into his path beautifully, went inside the box, put it on his left and had a shot that was blocked as it was kind of heading towards goal. He had some good little moments like that, but yeah, didn't quite have enough of the combinations that he's been doing with Kulusevski. Didn't find enough space. Wasn't a great night for him. I've seen people jumping back on his back again on Twitter, saying, as soon as he's come against a good team, he's shown himself up. I don't think that's fair. I think it just didn't leave him a lot of space in which he needs to operate. Reguilon has a strange game. It was really weird. I'm trying to think back kind of the various things he did. He obviously played Sancho on side for the second goal. And he did that thing that always really annoys me. When a player they think someone's offside or they think there's a foul or whatever. And he just kind of was waving at the linesman to go, hey, that's offside. It's like, it's a cliche, but it's such a correct one. Play to the whistle. If the whistle doesn't go, let VAR sort that out afterwards. And I just wonder, because he's very fast, Reguilon. And I just wonder, had he immediately turned and sprinted, he might have even got back there to cut out Sancho's ball to Ronaldo. He might not, but at least he would have had the chance to try and get there instead of going and doing all of that. I'm not a huge fan of that. And his attacking, Reguilon, there were too many moments where I felt he turned inside rather than playing. It's kind of the stuff that we were saying that Sessegnon had to do more, stop doing. I think Reguilon was doing that. There was a couple of moments when he could have got the ball to Kane and he didn't. Not a good one from Reguilon. Although I did feel as it went on, he started to try and make amends for it. The cross for Maguire's own goal was a very good cross. Similar, I suppose, idea-ish in a way to the Sessegnon one that brought the own goal. Again, it's Everton, Michael Keane's. That kind of idea. That's where you want to put it into the mixer, as it were. And then he also did a really good ran back, sprinted back. I think it was on Jadon Sancho. He did a really good slide tackle in the final moments, which could have been 4-2 the game. So yeah, just another one. Needs to find that consistency. And he'll get the chance to play through it because, Sessegnon's going to be out for Spurs are saying a month. From what I understand, I think that even could be quite conservative. I think maybe more like 5-6 weeks. Hopefully, he might heal quickly, but just feel so sorry for Seth. So unfortunate. It's a different part of his hamstring. It's the same hamstring. I think it's the left one, but it's a different part of it. The hamstring technically is a group of 3 muscles. And yeah, it's a different part. So in one aspect, that's good because it's not a reoccurrence of another injury. It's just unfortunate. He's just had another hamstring injury, and that's he needs to get over that. He does because they are too common for him. But he mustn't let it define him. Conte said the other day he's very down, Sessegnon, very frustrated. Of course he would be, but what I'd say is hamstring injuries can be overcome. Steven Gerrard used to have a fair few of them. Dele Alli had about 18 months worth of problems with them and now doesn't seem to be suffering from them. Of course, he's probably not playing enough 90-minute games to do so, but I think he is over them. Harry Kane has had his hamstring injuries in the past, including the one serious one. Toby Alderweireld had a really serious one as well. So hamstrings, of course, Sessegnon is 21. He's younger. It's a little bit more concerning that he's having them younger, but it doesn't have to define him. It's not one of these long-term serious injuries that I think can define your career. He can overcome it. I think he can. I hope he can. But yeah, like I say, it gives Reguilon the chance to try and iron out his inconsistencies and get more and more used to the wing-back role. In front of the defence, Bentancur and Højbjerg, strange games. Bentancur did some really good attacking things well. He still has those laid-back moments when he'll lose the ball. I just felt more his defensive side of the game was where his inconsistency showed. He had some strong tackles that he did, but he also got sucked in too much, especially the first goal. If you notice the first goal, he just kind of drifts to the ball rather than kind of maintaining his position in the shape of the team. And it just created that space then behind him for Ronaldo to run into and have the space to have the shot as well as Dyer not stepping up, of course. So Bentancur, he played some lovely crossfield balls, had some little moments, but probably his weakest performance so far of what has been a very brief time, let's be honest. There's a lot more to come from him. Actually, again, there's all social media people saying that he shouldn't start the next match. As you can tell, I'm a huge fan of the things that can be said on social media. And I appreciate the slight hypocrisy of that or irony of that, because it is a platform that I use myself a lot. But I kind of use it more just for a bit of fun, really, or for work purposes, of course. But some of the takes, as they're called on there, are just like, whoa. And that's one of them. You don't drop Bentancur. Bentancur, you need to become a mainstay of that midfield. You need him now to settle in there. And you don't drop a player after one slightly iffy game. Højbjerg, I've seen him get some stick. I actually thought he played quite well. And I was kind of asking around, because sometimes when I've got an opinion about something that seems to be counter to some things I see people saying on social media, I like to check, and I kind of, without leading question, I'll ask other people in the press, what do you think of Højbjerg today? What do you think of him? And the general consensus was they actually played pretty well. He battled hard, won a fair few, kind of won the ball back a few times. I think his shot and goal was because he won the ball back. Yeah, again, with Davies, I'd put him in that category of someone that perhaps doesn't really deserve too much in the way of criticism. His passing could have been better at times. I think that'll always be something with Højbjerg. There's at times when he sees something in his head that he wants to do, but the quality of his pass doesn't match it. There were a few sloppy moments with his passing, but I actually felt that in terms of what the rest of he did, I think he helped Spurs dominate a lot of the possession in the midfield. I think a lot of that came through Højbjerg's work. So, I think it would be harsh to criticise him particularly heavily. Who else? There's only Hugo Lloris left, really. Made a couple of good, smart saves from Ronaldo. Could he have got to any of the 3 goals? Oh, that's a difficult one. he'll feel he probably could have. First goal, I couldn't tell whether he was unsighted or not, and it was one of those Ronaldo kind of knuckleball swerver types. Second one, there's not much you can do about. Third one, yeah, he did that thing that always annoys people where the goalkeeper just kind of goes, and just watches it go by him. So could he have reacted better? Perhaps. I would say the second and third goals in particular were pretty close range, powerful things. It's very difficult for a goalkeeper to do much about. First goal, maybe distance-wise, he'll feel that he could have got closer to it, but it was a quality strike. It really was. So yeah, they need to find a defensive shape again, Tottenham, for the visit to Brighton on Wednesday night. It's an annoying one because they could really do with a week to get back on the training ground and probably sort it out. But actually, this is one of the probably 2 weeks of the remainder of the season where they don't have that. Because of the Brighton game and the trip to the Amex Stadium. So it essentially means they're going to have a recovery day they would have done today. And then maybe you get Monday and Tuesday to start going through more tactical aspects. I don't know whether they'll travel Tuesday night. Got a press conference is in the afternoon, maybe. Although being a night game, you probably could head up there on the morning of the game. So maybe give themselves a full 2 days of training at least. But yeah, it's be interesting to see now what happens with the way Conte's talking has slightly shifted. Of course, we had the press conference on Friday. Thursday. He decided to have it on a Thursday rather than Friday this week, which was an interesting one. It had reminded me of Poch. Poch used to like to do that. Whenever he had a Saturday game, press conference would be on a Thursday. Whenever he had a Sunday game, press conference would be on a Friday. Whereas Conte is being pretty consistent, which is similar to Mourinho, but the press conference is always at the end of the week on the Friday. Whereas for this United game, he decided, no, we're going to the Thursday, which... it brought us some good stuff. If you haven't seen it, if you've been living under a rock, he finally confirmed publicly that he wants to stay at Tottenham next season. He wants to win big things with Tottenham, but he added the massive caveat, of course, which he has every right to do, that what he wants has to match what the club wants. And they're going to all sit down at the end of the season and decide whether their visions are the same. And that, of course, will be the crux of it all. Of course it will. And he kind of went down similar avenue after the game on Saturday. It's quite interesting on Saturday. There was one answer where he was answering the inconsistency. That long answer. I think he was answering Simon Stone from the BBC asked it. It was a good question. But just randomly halfway through, he just locked eyes on me. And it was just like... He just decided, I don't know whether he just maybe hadn't realised I was there or something, and he kind of saw a regular face that he's used to seeing. And he just kind of almost dedicated the second half of that answer to me. Like real maintaining eye contact. It was one of those where, and I have to also run a live blog during press conferences, so I have to kind of always be typing up what he's saying as well. But I don't like to do that when he's looking at me, because it's not to say I'm shy or embarrassed or anything, but I don't know, it just feels a little bit disrespectful if someone's talking to you and you're going, yeah, okay, and you just kind of get in the top of your head instead. So yeah, I ended up having to kind of say, no, I hear you, Antonio, yeah. Which, yeah, I don't know why he did that, but anyway, sorry. Again, I massively digress. I just wonder. This wasn't the ranting Conte, This was this kind of new Conte. I want Spurs, but do Spurs want me enough kind of way? And I do wonder with Daniel Levy, whether beforehand it was always going to, oh, what's he said now? What's Antonio said now? And it was this emotional strategy roller coaster that he was on before, where you didn't know what words were going to come out after the match, whether he was going to be furious, whether he was going to be laughing so that he didn't cry, whether he was going to be calm and composed. But I'd actually say that this calmer Conte talking about the future is far more dangerous for Daniel Levy and the board of Tottenham Hotspur, because he's backing Levy into a corner. There's no other real way to say it. I put that in my article earlier, and I had someone on Twitter I noticed just before I did this video go, being a bit dramatic there, Alistair, which maybe I am, but I kind of feel he is. I feel like I've said it before that this is probably one of the most important summers in, maybe Daniel Levy's tenure at Tottenham Hotspur. And I think Conte is now going, that guy, you need to be looking at that guy, not me. And it's like, oh, you are. He is. He's saying very much that if I'm not here next season, it's because the club weren't as ambitious as I was. Remember that, people. And that's like what I feel like he's saying. And it does. And I'm not sure what a corner Daniel Levy's like. They always say you shouldn't kind of corner an animal or a wounded animal or whatever. I don't know, though, whether... I don't know. I think Levy kind of has to respond in the way that Conte wants. I can't see what the alternative scenario would be. Because... we've spoken about it before. It really it could go so many ways, and not many of them are good. Let me read you his quotes. What he said afterwards. The actual question, it came from a foreign journalist. It was very much a question we've asked a million times before, which was, "Are you going to show the?" I think it's the one I've asked before. Are you going to show the patience? Whereas before, I was getting, maybe it was just because of me, but I was getting the the kind of the fobbed off. It's all about just this season. Let's talk about this season. Not next season. It sounded a bit like the Matt Lucas Little Britain character, didn't it? Look around the eyes, look around the eyes. But what we're getting now, when that question's asked of Conte, is the more, well, I want to do it, and I'll tell you what he said to that. So when he was asked, "Do you have patience to oversee a team that needs time to challenge?" I think that every day I like to go to the training ground and to work with these players. I'm having a fantastic experience because I enjoy my time at Tottenham. For sure, a different situation if I have to compare to my past. As in my past, I fought to win the title, to win a trophy. The situation is a big challenge, a new challenge. But the people see very well the commitment of what I'm doing, what I'm putting into the training ground with my staff to try to deliver something important. As I always say, I have patience and I like to work. I like to work and what we're doing at the same time. I like to work on what we're doing, and at the same time, I want to be very clear, as I don't want to lose my ambition. This must be very clear to everyone. I repeat, I hope that we're in the same way. And I think that was the last sentence of the press conference. It was very much a mic drop, chucking in that little verbal grenade, whatever you want to call it. It's saying to Daniel Levy and the board, find the money to finally push Spurs on and provide me with the players that I can use to take this club to another level, or don't do it, lose yet another top manager, and you'll feel the wrath of the fans. And there's no doubt that Conte is probably one of the best prepared or best bets for Tottenham to finally end this long trophy drought. I just really worry. I really worry about what would happen if he, if he heads off into the sunset. I should stress, Conte's not entirely innocent in all of this. We know about your past, Antonio. It's constantly said, and I think some of the fans are starting to get pretty annoyed at this. I'm great. Look what I've done thing. I'm not used to this garbage kind of thing. But, I think as a manager, if you're going to be completely honest and you're going to appraise what he's done, I think I've seen improvements, but a manager of his level should not be, producing the kind of inconsistent results, or his team should not be producing these inconsistent results that he has. And he has sounded a little bit like a workman blaming his tools recently. Someone of his... he is. The past thing is quite interesting. He kind of keeps talking about the past almost as a way to divert from the present. I have been wonderful. If things are going wrong, it's not my fault, Gov. It's not me, Gov. It really is that. It's all going wrong now. And that's because of you lot. And yeah, I do find it. But he can explain away defeats to the Chelseas and even the Man U's. As a manager, I'd be expecting an Antonio Conte team, regardless of what level he believes they're at. They should be beating an AS Moura. They should be beating a Championship side in Middlesbrough. They should not be losing back-to-back home games against Southampton and Wolves. Burnley as well. Yes, that's a tough game, but Antonio Conte's side should not be, in that scenario, I don't think. I don't think he's innocent in all of this at all. I think he can certainly will have looked at what we've done and probably felt that he could have also done a bit better. You've got to be fair. You've got to look at all sides of this scenario as well. But ultimately, next season, I do think will come down to what he's given. I've said this before about the, a new manager of Conte would be manager number 13 in, 20 years or so. Actually, that's quite interesting. Conte keeps using the expression 20 years when he's talking about how, inconsistent Spurs have been or how poor they've been and how they haven't won anything in 20 years. Is it any coincidence that 20 years or 21 years now is the Daniel Levy era, the ENIC era? Where's he plucked that number from? Because Spurs have actually been far more consistent for years past that. I was wondering whether he's been a little bit mischievous there, Is he using that expression because he knows that's the amount of time Daniel Levy's been there? Is he putting that little bit more pressure on? I don't know. It may be purely coincidence. It may just be a number he's plucked out his head. But I do keep finding that quite interesting that he uses that one. As I've said before, where do they go? Where do they go if Conte goes? Obviously one line of thought would be bringing Poch back, which would be popular, I think, with a fair chunk of the fans. I think obviously there's fans that don't think he should come back. And obviously he's had a nightmare of the week himself with the Real Madrid comeback against PSG and them getting dumped out of the competition, the Champions League. I saw some of the fans booing Messi and Neymar when they were touching the ball today. PSG fans, it's like that's where I find football mind-boggling sometimes. And I think they scored literally a minute later or something. I think it won 3-0. I think the odds look like Poch will be available this summer, but again, it depends on whether PSG were to put some kind of gardening leave thing on him, whether he could or whether they try and tie him up to make sure he doesn't go to someone else. But even if Levy were to manage to get Poch back, it would essentially be like admitting the mistake he made in 2019. That's what it would be like. It would be a climb down. Either way, if he loses, he'd have to. If he loses Conte, he has to climb down, really, in that sense, if he was to get Poch. But would Poch come back? I think it's something Poch wants in the future to come back. Whether he comes back again into a sporting director style system, I still struggle with that a little bit. With Paratici being there, I don't know how that works. He was fine with Paul Mitchell and Steve Hitchen because they were both close friends of his. Whereas I don't think it worked particularly well with Baldini to begin with. I could be completely wrong in that, but I feel like it wasn't quite the perfect relationship. I mean, obviously there's been links with Paratici going to PSG, or at least them being interested in taking him. I'd be surprised this quick into a new challenge of something he's spoken about as being such a long-term challenge, And he's not a guy, to be fair to him, who has, just shifted jobs. He was at Juventus for, 11 years? I think he was at Sampdoria for quite a little while before that as well. Of course, yes, PSG shop in the same kind of supermarkets as Juventus do, compared to, Tottenham's maybe more looking in the reduced bin with the yellow stickers sometimes. So yes, as someone that is a transfer operator, someone that finds those deals, yes, perhaps it's easier for him in a place like that. But no, I think Spurs would fight pretty hard on that. I'd be surprised if that would happen. But then on the flip side, what do you do if Poch wanted to come back and said, but the only proviso is that I don't want to have that director of football relationship thing. I can't work within that system again. Big decisions. But hey, I hope it doesn't have to come to that. Me personally, I think it's too soon for Poch to come back. I think there needs to be more distance between. Looks like as long as they don't get rid of him before the end of the season, looks like he will win his first league title to have on his CV, which obviously looks much better. But I don't think enough has changed from what he left at Tottenham in 2019, and that's my biggest issue with that. But ultimately, I think I wanted to see it work for Conte, because if it works for Conte, it means that Levy and the board have shown it's time to kind of fight with the big boys, a little bit more on their level. There's only so long you can kind of try and swing punches at the elite and just hope to get a bit of a haymaker in there and take them down. I think you have to start kind of getting that little bit stronger yourself. Look, there's still plenty of time before we even have to really contemplate that anyway. 11 games to go. Yes, the league tables looks a lot more difficult this weekend after that. I think you have to hold on hope onto things like Arsenal still having... They've got Liverpool in midweek. Obviously, that'll be a tough game. I think they've still got Man United next month. And obviously, the rescheduled North London derby at Spurs. There are games that will be difficult for them. But Spurs don't have it easy either. Yeah, of course, even this week, even going to Brighton is a game where Spurs have struggled at times in recent years in this fixture. And of course, West Ham is huge at the weekend. It is such a big game. And Spurs against West Ham has been a difficult game for Spurs in recent years as well. So, I think Spurs just have to concentrate on themselves. They have to find some level of consistency from somewhere. And just hope, maybe... I think West Ham got their big game against Sevilla, the second leg, which obviously they got to come from behind on Thursday night. So, yes, they might be that a little bit more tired, perhaps. Maybe Spurs can capitalise on that. But, as I say, West Ham always seem to raise their game against Spurs as well. Although they're having another decent season under David Moyes. They really are. So, Spurs can't wallow in the defeat against Old Trafford. I think they have to take the positives from it. And, I've seen the comments from not only Conte, but also Hugo Lloris came out, and Højbjerg's come out, and they kind of all said, look, feels like we're going in the right direction. As long as that's the feeling within the camp, that means that hopefully, while they'll be disappointed, they don't wallow. And they do kind of crack on this week as well. There's all the summer stuff has to be put to one side. It's kind of, there's so much business to be dealt with right now. And yes, focus. It really has to be the buzzword around Tottenham right now. It does. So I'm going to head off. Sorry if that was a slightly depressing one or not. I'm a bit knackered, so there's probably lots of throughout it. But I've got a day off tomorrow, so I'm going to have a nice rest up and come back swinging again for the Tuesday press conference at Hotspur Way in the afternoon. But let's see what happens. Conte's not disheartened. I don't get the impression the players are. So fingers crossed that leads to a little bit of momentum. The pattern suggests that it should be win-loss, win-loss. I really don't want Spurs to break this pattern by making it 2 defeats. They did that with the Southampton Wolves game. I want them to break it with 2 wins. And then more. Because like I say, I think Spurs are going to have to win a lot of these remaining 11 games if they are to stand a chance of pulling off a little bit of a shock towards the end of the season. But there you go. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Oliver Skipp. Yeah, Oliver Skipp still... I asked Conte about him at the presser on Thursday. I just said, are you worried? He said, I am. I am a bit worried about the... Because I can't give you a time frame on him. The actual thing he's got, I believe... where have I put it? I've written it down here. So what it is, the injury relates to... This is where we go all a bit Latin. Pubic symphysis. So that's the area he's having a bit of an issue with. It's obviously a sensitive area, as you can tell by one of the words in there. It's all down there in the painful area, and it's just about him not having this kind of pain, as it were. And I've kind of tried to look up to it. I'm no doctor or medical expert in any way. But it does seem like something that needs a little bit of time to get over. I just hope we see him again this season. I hope we do. Certainly there's been no suggestion that he will miss the remainder of the season. But when Conte says, I can't give you a time frame, It's not a great one, and I do still believe that they need his drive in that midfield as well, and to offer more of an option when things aren't going Spurs' way, and probably start when he's back to full fitness and form. But that's a whole other conversation. Right, I'm going to head off. As always, stay safe, stay healthy, look after yourselves, and I shall catch you later with hopefully a bit more of a happier one next time. See you later. Bye.